Hi everyone. I wanted to make a video to explain the next step because it seemed like there was some confusion. So I just want to go over it the way that I would if I were you. So I'm going to take this video in steps. It will be a little bit more on the lengthy side, but there are going to be some hard stuff so that way you don't have to look at everything that I'm doing. So I've got just the way that you have. I have my picture. I have the outline and my draft. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the draft and just think about what I like and what I don't like about it. So now that I've read through everything, I'm going to take a look at the questions that I have that we created together. So is the historical context clear? Instead of marking this document itself, I'm going to make a copy so that way I can write on it and not mess with anybody else's information. So is the historical context clear? Yes and no. The information is accurate. It's fine. The history is fine. How does it relate to my image? Is it a clear connection? That part's not super clear. And does it inform my understanding of the image? That part's not super clear. So I know that in the introduction, it leads up to it. Great. So that's something that I don't need to change. However, in the essay itself, it doesn't refer back. When I look at my example, or when I look at my draft, it does a really good job talking about, people being affected. And this is the only part that it talks about the Great Depression. This one sentence, and that's it. So it doesn't use the context of the Great Depression on this image and the understanding of this image in this. So physical hardship, but emotional suffering. Yes, but because of why? And what is it that's causing this to happen? So it doesn't refer back. Does it inform the understanding of the image? No. So I'm going to, because this works better in my brain, I'm going to highlight this to remind myself I need to fix this. Okay? So that's what I'm going to go and do for all of these. All right, so I've gone through and I've identified what it is that I want to fix and what I don't. So there's not, I already talked about that. I haven't really considered the audience in the rough draft. It's not something that is clear. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to specifically address the audience of you, wealthy people, blah, blah, blah. But more I want to have that in mind as I'm writing. That way it's what I use and what I talk about is going to be affected. Thinking about what they're expecting, any biases, location, what I'm expecting. I'm just wanting at this point to inform and persuade. Finally, I'm not asking them to go out and do anything. It's more of an awareness type of vibe. In my argument, when I'm talking about rhetorical choices, at first glance, it looks great, but it is very listing. The image that it's in black and white. The two people are turned away from camera. She looks off in the distance. It captures it's listing what it is that's happening. So I don't want that so much. I want to go in and add more to it to expand or to connect that to the author's argument, to connect to the context. I kind of made it clear what the argument, or the rough draft has made it clear what the argument is, but that could be stronger, which I will do here. The order of paragraphs isn't great. I don't love the way it is. It seems very redundant, so I want to change that up a little bit. I've put in, okay, this is what I want to do. And then the conclusion is, all right, but I want to change it up. So these are the things that I'm going to focus on. So from here, I am then going to write my revision. When I write it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the word revision, and then I'm going to copy and paste the entire thing, and then I can make adjustments on this and not have to go back and forth. Okay, so I know I'm going to want to change my topic sentence, so I'll go through and I'll do that. The rest of the introduction, I'm fine with. I think the rest of the introduction is good. Okay, I'm not going to touch that. Then I'm going to get into the next part. But I'm going to want to keep some of this, and rather than going back and forth and confusing myself, I'm just going to copy and paste it right here on the revision, and then make my revisions on here. Although I'm not expecting you to highlight the changes that you made, I wanted to highlight the changes I made to show you and to kind of talk through why I made those changes. So I changed my topic sentence. I don't love it, but it's fine. But I wanted to kind of get into the empathy and history a little bit more. And then I get into the context. All of that stays the same. I took out the word "and" there because I like the asyndeton of their homes, their savings, their sense of security. It brings the emphasis to that. I added this of jumping off high rises and lining up for food because one of the things that I was thinking about with my audience is that they're wealthy and might have this pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So I wanted to kind of include what wealthy people did as well with that. Kept this the same. I wanted to be able to talk about when specifically the photograph was taken. So it was 7 years after 1929. And I wanted to include where it was. Now, I didn't know this information, so I got it from somewhere. So I'm going to need to cite it. We haven't talked about citation yet. We're going to do that on Monday. So for right now, I just put in parentheses what the URL is. That way I'll be able to go back and find it later. I decided to change my topic sentence, partly because here, I had that in the first body paragraph, I want to focus on the image itself, and the second, I want to be more of like the color and stuff. But also, I know that my purpose is an awareness, and I'm thinking of my audience and how is it that I'm going to connect it back. So I'm thinking of all of those things. So by making this change of what the argument is to what is it she does and why, it's a little bit more complex of a topic sentence. But because I have like, okay, this is what she's doing. She has the simplicity of the portrait, but I'm going to contrast it to normal. And instead of just focusing on mothers, because my audience might not just be mothers, and it might be fathers, it might be whatever. And I don't want them to be like, oh, well, only mothers feel that way. So I want to cut that off. And I don't want it to be just the Great Depression because I want to bring it back. And then, so I wanted to have that change is the reason why. I changed up my first 5 paragraphs. I had the topic sentence, as I just mentioned, and I wanted to then explain it a little bit. One thing that I mentioned in your last essay quite a bit was don't jump into your evidence too quickly. So you have your topic sentence, you explain it a little bit, and then you get into your evidence. The evidence for this, because I'm describing a picture, is a little bit different, but it would still be evidence. This is not highlighted because I didn't change it. I just moved it up from a different spot. When I looked at the picture again, though, I realized there's not 2 children, there's 3. So I needed to change my original. What I put in my outline was incorrect. I said that there were 2 children. that's not true. There's three. So I needed to make that change. The two older children talked about that. What is it that it does? Went into more detail about the argument, about, if I'm going here, I was thinking about connecting to the argument to the context, making clear what the argument is. This is what I was focusing on. I was making sure I went into more detail there. I had a quote that I'm adding in, so I did that. This portion, it originally said the photograph captures not just the physical hardship, but emotional suffering that comes from, I don't even think it said from being unable to provide. Yeah. So I added that portion because I wanted to, again, make the connection to the context, but I also want to be able to talk about now, which is what I'm going to talk about in my conclusion a little bit more. So that's there. I'm thinking ahead to my conclusion. I moved some things over. My next topic sentence is connecting. So the power of the photograph comes not just from the simplicity of the subject, which is what this is about, but the monochromatic tones. That's this portion. That's the power aspect. Then I use part of what's there. I'm explaining it a little bit more. This part is bold because I don't like it, so I want to go back to it. But I'm just kind of going through the different parts. My second body paragraph isn't as long as my first body paragraph, but I think that's okay because there's not as much to talk about. The composition of it, as far as the people and the expressions, doesn't give as much to talk about as gives more than the colors themselves. Thinking about it, I could talk about how the colors also emphasize the dirt. In fact, I think I'll do that real quick. All right, I added that, and I'm glad I did because it brings back a little bit more to the stress of the mother, which is part of the argument. So again, I just moved things around. There's quite a bit of it that is from the rough draft. It's just adding in more. One thing that I did want to point out is I changed this from an M dash to a semicolon. I do like M dashes, but not in that context. So I wanted to change it to fit my own writing style. So in conclusion, this part that I just highlighted was originally in the second body paragraph, but it was more summing up instead of adding new information. So I moved it to the conclusion. I also took out in conclusion because I absolutely loathe in conclusion, in your conclusion. I also took out Dorothea Lange's migrant mother uses visual techniques to argue that the Great Depression had devastating effects on women and children, because it's a little redundant. Instead, I don't want to just summarize what it is that I've already said. I want to go a little further. So I'm keeping portions. Now I moved this part down. It speaks directly to the viewer's sense of compassion, humility, or humanity. Her photograph invites viewers to feel empathy and reflect on the importance of supporting others during times of crisis. I'm likely going to take this part either out or move it, just because this, supporting others in times of crisis, is a big, and that was on the original, is a big part of what it is that I want to do, of connecting it better to the audience of people who are perhaps unaware of experiences of the poor and of migrants. So I kept much of the conclusion the same, but I wanted to add in the Great Depression one more time and compare it to today. So I added this information. So after I've done my revision, again, you don't need to make the highlighting of the changes you made. If you want to, for Monday, feel free, but this is what you're doing. Then from there, you're going to look at, or I would recommend that you look at these, like, okay, is there a clear connection? Yes. Does it do the historical? Yes. I've covered that. Okay. Have I kept my audience in mind? Yes. And what they're expecting. I'm not shaming. Okay. What bias? I'm not, yeah. Okay. Have I gone over all of this? If there's something that I'm like, ooh, I still haven't really done that, then I'll go back and do it again. So that's what I would recommend that you do.